In this video, we are going to cover a detailed summary of Shakespeare's historical tragedy Richard III, exploring the rise, schemes, and downfall of one of history's most infamous kings. So let's start. Richard III tells the story of ambition, treachery, and the relentless pursuit of power in England during the late 15th century. The play opens with Richard, Duke of Gloucester, a hunchbacked, cunning, and ruthless nobleman, plotting to ascend to the throne of England. Richard is ambitious, manipulative, and unprincipled, capable of exploiting loyalty, fear, and personal weaknesses to achieve his goals. From the very first scene, he reveals his intent to eliminate anyone who stands in the way of his ascent, including family, friends, and even innocents. Shakespeare introduces Richard's complex character through self-awareness and relentless desire for power. At the outset, Richard laments the difficulties caused by his physical deformity, claiming it prevents him from enjoying the simple joys of life and winning affection. However, he quickly pivots to plotting, vowing to use deceit, manipulation, and murder to rise to the throne. He begins by turning his brother George, Duke of Clarence, against the current king, Edward IV, subtly convincing him to trust the wrong advisors and fall into a trap. Richard's skill in exploiting human weakness and his strategic intelligence mark him as both a villain and a master tactician, setting the stage for the political intrigue and violence that will follow. Edward IV, the reigning king, is aware of tensions among his nobles, yet he fails to recognize the extent of Richard's ambition. Richard uses the loyalty of other nobles to disguise his intentions while advancing his schemes. Meanwhile, the citizens of England are aware of political instability and fear the consequences of noble rivalries. Richard's ability to manipulate perception, hide his true nature, and charm allies while plotting against them underscores Shakespeare's exploration of ambition, morality, and the corrupting influence of power. One of Richard's first acts of ruthless ambition is orchestrating the death of his brother George, Duke of Clarence. Richard uses deceit to convince the king and others that Clarence is a threat, leading to his imprisonment in the Tower of London. Ultimately, Clarence is executed, removed from the path of Richard's ambition. This act demonstrates Richard's willingness to betray even family for the sake of power. His cunning manipulation of events and people highlights his strategic mind and moral corruption. After Edward IV's death, Richard moves swiftly to consolidate power. He eliminates those who might challenge his claim, including nobles loyal to Edward's heirs. Among his most notorious crimes is the murder of young princes in the Tower of London. Edward, sons whose claim to the throne threatens Richard, his ambitions. The deaths of these children, innocent and defenseless, highlight Richard's cruelty and the extreme lengths he will go to secure power. Meanwhile, Richard employs flattery, deceit, and intimidation to gain the support of influential nobles and secure his path to kingship. Richard's manipulation extends to marriage alliances as well. He woos Lady Anne, the widow of a man he has murdered, despite her initial hatred and resistance. Through charm, persuasion, and psychological manipulation, he wins her hand, showcasing his ability to exploit human emotions for personal gain. Richard's interactions with Anne revealed the complexity of his character. He is capable of both cruelty and cunning social strategy, using intelligence and deceit to achieve his ends. Once crowned King Richard III, his reign is marked by fear, suspicion, and tyranny. He alienates allies, spreads distrust, and continues to eliminate perceived threats to his rule. His advisors and courtiers begin to recognize the danger of his ambition, and discontent grows among the people of England. Even those who initially supported him start to turn away as his cruelty becomes apparent. Shakespeare presents Richard as a figure whose intelligence is matched only by his moral depravity, a man whose desire for power blinds him to loyalty, compassion, and the consequences of his actions. As opposition builds, Richard faces a coalition of nobles determined to restore order and place the rightful heir, Henry Tudor, on the throne. The forces of Henry Tudor, who becomes Henry VII, march against Richard, motivated by the desire for justice, revenge, and the restoration of stability in England. The tension builds to the climactic Battle of Bosworth Field, where Richard's ambition, cruelty, and overconfidence come to a head. His army, though loyal, is increasingly demoralized, and the inevitability of his downfall looms. Richard's final soliloquies reveal a mixture of defiance, self-awareness, and fear. He recognizes the consequences of his tyranny, yet cannot abandon his ruthless pursuit of power. On the battlefield, he fights valiantly, but is ultimately defeated by Henry Tudor's forces. Richard's death is both a personal and symbolic. And his ruthless ambition, deceit, and moral corruption are finally overcome by justice and order. Shakespeare presents this as a moral lesson. Unchecked ambition, cruelty, and manipulation inevitably lead to downfall, while justice and rightful leadership prevail. In the aftermath of the battle, Henry Tudor ascends to the throne as Henry VII, bringing hope, stability, and reconciliation to a nation scarred by conflict and treachery. The surviving characters mourn the chaos caused by Richard's ambition, yet there is also relief that the cycle of murder, deceit, and political instability has ended. Shakespeare emphasizes the restoration of moral and social order, illustrating the consequences of unchecked ambition and the necessity of justice, loyalty, and lawful rule. Throughout Richard III, Shakespeare explores themes of power, ambition, morality, and the consequences of cruelty. Richard's character is a study in contrasts. Intelligent, yet deceitful. Charming, yet ruthless. Ambitious, yet ultimately selfish. The play highlights how personal flaws, combined with unrestrained ambition, can destabilize society and lead to tragedy. At the same time, Shakespeare celebrates intelligence, loyalty, and justice through the eventual triumph of Henry Tudor. The play also examines the human capacity for manipulation, persuasion, and strategic thinking. Richard's soliloquies provide insight into his mind, allowing audiences to understand the interplay of ambition, calculation, and moral corruption. Shakespeare contrasts Richard's ruthless pragmatism with the integrity and loyalty of characters such as Buckingham, the Duke of Norfolk, and Henry Tudor, emphasizing the moral choices that shape history and human lives. Richard III is not only a historical chronicle but also a timeless exploration of ambition, power, and human nature. Shakespeare's vivid characters, dramatic tension, and intricate plotting create a story that is both compelling and morally instructive. Audiences witness the rise and fall of one of England's most infamous rulers, learning lessons about the destructive potential of unchecked ambition, the importance of justice, and the ultimate triumph of morality over cruelty. The play concludes with a sense of resolution and moral clarity. Richard's death marks the end of tyranny and the restoration of legitimate rule. The ascension of Henry VII promises a more just and stable England, offering hope for a future governed by law, loyalty, and fairness. Shakespeare leaves audiences with the understanding that ambition, when unrestrained by morality, can lead to ruin, and that justice, courage, and righteousness will ultimately prevail.